I bet that was Daedalus Diggle. He never had much sense. You can't blame them. We've had precious little time to celebrate in 11 years. I know that, but that's no reason to lose our heads. People are being downright careless. Out on the streets in broad daylight, not even dressed in muggle clothes, swapping rumors. She threw a sharp, sideways glance at Dumbledore here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something. But he didn't, so she went on. A fine thing it would be if on the very day you-know-who seems to have disappeared at last, the Muggles found out about us at all. I suppose he really has gone, Dumbledore. It certainly seems so, said Dumbledore. We have so much to be thankful for. Would you care for a lemon drop? A what? A lemon drop. They're a kind of muggle sweet I'm rather fond of. No, thank you. As I say, even if you-know-who has gone, my dear Professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can call him by his name. All this you-know-who nonsense for 11 years I have been trying to persuade people to call him by his proper name, Voldemort. It all gets confusing when we keep saying you-know-who. I have never seen any reason to be frightened of saying Voldemort's name. I know you haven't, said Professor McGonagall, sounding half exasperated, half admiring. But you're different. Everyone knows you're the only one you know. Oh, all right. Voldemort was frightened of. You flatter me, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort had powers I will never have. Only because you're too, well, noble to use them. It's lucky it's dark. I haven't blushed so much since Madame Pomfrey told me she liked my new earmuffs. Professor McGonagall shot a sharp look at Dumbledore and said, The owls are nothing next to the rumors that are flying around. You know what everyone's saying? Why he's disappeared and what's finally stopped him? It seemed that Professor McGonagall had reached the point where she was most anxious to discuss. The real person she'd been waiting on a cold, hard wall all day. For neither as a cat nor as a woman had she fixed Dumbledore with such a piercing stare as she did now. It was plain, whatever everyone was saying, she was not going to believe it until Dumbledore told her it was true. However, Dumbledore was choosing another lemon drop, and did not answer. What they're saying is that last night Voldemort turned up at Godric's Hollow and went to go find the Potters. The rumor is that Lily and James Potter are dead. That they're dead. Dumbledore bowed his head. Professor McGonagall gasped. Lily and James, can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Oh, Albus. Dumbledore reached over and patted her on the shoulder. I know, he said heavily. That's not all. They're saying he tried to kill the Potter's son, Harry. But he couldn't. He couldn't kill that little boy. No one knows why. Voldemort's power somehow broke. That's why he's gone. Dumbledore nodded glumly. It's true? Faltered Professor McGonagall. After all he's done, all the people he's killed, he couldn't kill a little boy? It's so just outstanding. Of all the things that stop him, how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? We can only guess. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a lace handkerchief and dabbed her eyes at it, beneath her spectacles. Dumbledore gave a great sniff as he took a golden watch from his pocket and examined it. It was a very odd watch. It had 12 hands but no numbers. Instead, little planets were moving around the edge. It must have made sense to Dumbledore because he put it back in his pocket and said, Hagrid's late. I suppose it was he who told you I'd be here, by the way? Yes, said Professor McGonagall. I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you're here of all places? I've come to bring Harry to his aunt and uncle. They're the only family he has left now. You don't mean... You can't mean the people who live here, cried Professor McGonagall, jumping to her feet and pointing at number 4. Dumbledore, you can't. I've been watching them all day. You can't find 2 people who are less like us, and they've got the sun. I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street, screaming for sweets. Harry Potter, come, live here? It's the best place for him. His aunt and uncle will be able to explain everything to him when he's older. I've written them a letter. A letter? Repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. Really, Dumbledore, you think you can explain all this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be a legend. He wouldn't be surprised if today he was known as Harry Potter Day in the future, because there will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world will know his name. Exactly, said Dumbledore. It would be able to enough to turn any boy's head, famous before he can even walk and talk, famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he'll be growing up away from all that until he's ready to take it? Professor McGonagall opened her mouth and changed her mind, swallowed, and then said, Yes, you're right, of course. How is the boy getting here, Dumbledore? Hagrid's bringing him. You think it's wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this? I would trust Hagrid with my life. I'm not saying that his heart isn't in the right place, but you can't pretend that he's not careless. He does tend to... What was that? A low rumbling sound had broken the silence around them. It grew steadily louder as he looked up down the street for some sign of a headlight. It swelled to a roar as they both looked up at the sky, and the huge motorcycle fell out of the air as it landed on the road in front of them. If the motorcycle was huge, it was almost nothing, the man sitting astride it. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man, and at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild. Long tangles of bushy black hair and beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in his leather boots were like baby dolphins. In his vast, muscular arms was holding a bundle of blankets. Hagrid, at last! Where did you get that motorcycle? Borrowed it, Professor Dumbledore, sir, said the giant as he climbed carefully off the motorcycle. Young Sirius Black lent it to me. I've got him, sir. No problems, were there? No, sir. The house was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right before the Muggles started swarming around. He fell asleep when we were flying over Bristol. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall bent forward over the bundle of blankets. Inside, just visible, was a baby boy, fast asleep. Under the tuft of jet black hair over his forehead, he could see a curiously shaped cut like a bolt of lightning. Is that where? Whispered Professor McGonagall. Yes, he'll have that scar forever. Couldn't you do something about it, Dumbledore? Even if I could, I wouldn't. Scars can come in handy. I have one myself, above my left knee, that is a perfect map of London Underground. Well, give him here, Hagrid. We'll get this over with. Dumbledore took Harry in his arms and turned towards the Dursleys' house. Could I say goodbye to him, sir? Asked Hagrid. He bent his grey shaggy head over Harry and gave him what must have been a very scratchy, whiskery kiss. And then suddenly Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog. Shh, hissed Professor McGonagall. You'll wake the Muggles. Sorry, sobbed Hagrid, taking out a large spotted handkerchief and burying his face in it. But I can't stand it. Lily and James dead, and poor little Harry off to live with the Muggles. Yes, it's all very sad, but get a grip on yourself, Hagrid, or we'll be found, Professor McGonagall whispered, patting Hagrid gingerly on the arm as Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. He laid Harry gently on the doorstep and took a letter out of his cloak and hid it inside Harry's blankets. Then he came back to the other two. For a full minute. The three of them stood and looked at the little bundle. Hagrid's shoulders shook. Professor McGonagall blinked furiously, and the twinkling light usually shone from Dumbledore's eyes seemed to have gone out. "Well, that's that. We have no business staying here. We may as well go and join the celebrations." "Yeah, I'd best get this bike away. Good night, Professor McGonagall. Good night, Professor Dumbledore, sir." Wiping his streaming eyes on the jacket sleeve, Hagrid swung himself on the motorcycle and kicked the engine to life. With a roar, it whizzed off into the air and off to the night. "I shall see you soon, I expect, Professor McGonagall," said Dumbledore, nodding to her. Professor McGonagall blew her nose in reply. Dumbledore turned and walked back down the street. On the corner, he stopped, took out the silver put outer. He clicked it once. 12 balls of light sped back to their lamps, so that Privet Drive glowed suddenly orange, and he could make out a tabby cat slinking around the corner at the end of the street. He could just see the bundle of blankets on step number 4. "Good luck, Harry," he murmured, and he turned on his heel with a swish of his cloak. He was gone. A breeze ruffled the neat hedges of Privet Drive, which lay silent and sunny under the inky sky. The very last place you would expect astonishing things to happen. Harry Potter rolled over inside of his blankets without waking up. One small hand closed on the letter beside him, and he slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, not knowing he would be woken in a few hours' time as Mrs. Dudley screamed as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles. Nor he would spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He could not know that this was very moment people meeting in secret all over the world. They were holding up their glasses and saying in hushed voices, "To Harry Potter, the boy who lived."